Hello, I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and you are very welcome to the June garden tour. Now in today's video I'm going to show you around the garden, and it's awash with colour at the moment. A lot of the rhodos are in full bloom. I have a lot of irises too, and things are just very much looking like summer. It's been such a busy time lately. I've had a couple of groups come. There's been the Irish Garden Festival called Bloom in the Phoenix Park. I've been participating in that in the plant clinic, so answering queries at the Irish Garden desk there, and just it's been really hectic, and the weather hasn't been great either. It's been okay, but it certainly hasn't been great. Anyway, today a little bit of sunshine and we're going to have a look around the garden, so come with me. And I just can't wait to get on and show you the garden, especially this section that was recently revamped. It was revamped last autumn, and it's really singing. But before we get into all that, just to let you know, if you're new here, that I garden in what roughly equates to as hardiness zone 9. Now, we don't use that system here in Ireland, but take it as a rough guide for what I might get through the winter or might not get through the winter. We're starting off here on the west side of my garden, and we have a couple of urns here which have just bedding plants in here. And then that leads here along a straight path and into the rest of the west garden, which is awash with irises at the moment. Now, you may recall that I planted a number of Dutch irises last autumn, and those have resulted in beautiful blooms in two colours. There are the white ones, which are called Alaska. These opened first and they're taller than the red ones. And then we have this dusky, moody purple, which is tinged with red and yellow in the centre of the lip. Red amber, I think it's called, and I really love it. The Dutch irises hold themselves up really rather well. I have had to stake one or two, but mostly they stand up all by themselves. This bearded iris here was looking fantastic for the longest time, and the bloom that has just been snipped now at the very top lasted for a full 5 days. Right up here at the top we have the first of my roses to come into bloom, this gorgeous pink one. The large rose bush you see behind me is Celeste, and she has opened just the very first of her blooms. There it is today, but when this is in full glorious flower, it really is fantastic. And those of you who followed me for a while will know that I don't grow many roses, but the ones that I do grow really got to be great. Now, don't get me wrong, I do love roses. There's nothing as magnificent as rose blooms when they're in full flower, and the scent is just amazing. However, with roses you need to feed them, and you also generally need to spray. So I do not grow roses anymore because I am not prepared to spray. The result is that I have 4 roses, a total of 4 roses in my garden. These two which you see here, which are old-fashioned roses. The Celeste is an Alba. This one here, I'm not quite sure what variety is, but it flowers just once a year, and it is glorious when it is in bloom. It is scented, and also I choose roses that don't ball. So a lot of roses, they ball in the rain. We get a lot of rain in Ireland, and the result is that the roses don't, the flowers don't open properly, and they just kind of rot before they even open, and I can't be doing that. Can't be spraying, but I do feed with my seaweed fertilizer in spring, and it seems to do these roses really well. So these two and 2 climbing roses, that's all I have in my garden. And now we move over to the newly revamped, newly cut area of this section of the garden. And you can see that this border here has been planted recently, and that's because this lip part of it was created last autumn. And funny story really, but this section of the garden is the stoniest, and if I had known at the very beginning it was going to be so stony, well, I think I wouldn't have ever planted anything here. However, I forgot, and it's been years since I dug a new border over here until last autumn when I cut out that bit. Oh my goodness, I removed 2 buckets full of large stones from this section when I planted the dahlias and the Echium wilpretii here just like a couple of weeks ago. Never again. Anyway, the Echium wilpretii is the one that you saw me have in the greenhouse last year. I grew it from seed, and I'm hoping that these rosettes will get very big now and look fantastic at the front of the border here. The dahlias are there already, as I mentioned, and also there are some annuals, so white cosmos and blue salvias, and the cosmos have been pinched back. So you can see how it's a kind of windy, twisty path. And the idea is that it kind of slows you down as you go through the garden, and you know, it meanders. You take a look at the plants. With a bit of luck, this will grow quite tall, so it kind of blocks off the view going across, and maybe you'll take the time of day and sit down at this border and just survey it all. As you can see, the iris theme has been extended over here, and we have a glorious clump of cerinthe just kind of bringing out the blues. Now there's a kind of moody, darker colour scheme going on in this part of the garden, but as we know, this is going to give way to bright pink a little bit later on in the season. I absolutely adore this dark bearded iris up here. I don't have a name for it, but it has just been stunning. And I have a big clump of it as well, which always helps enormously. And tucked away in here at the back of the border, I suppose, or midway in the border, is this glorious shrub with the bell-like flowers, Jovellana it's called. And when it's in bloom, oh my goodness, it's just fantastic. You may notice the candelabra primroses just to the left of it, and these are the ones that are planted in my bog planter, but you can see no sign of the bog planter, just with the surrounding foliage camouflaging it. So come on, let's go over to the other section, the other side of the garden. I knew you would like to see my pot displays again, so here's what we have at the moment. We have lilies just coming into bloom. We have some Xanthodecia, and we have a Sarracenia and some other bits and bobs. Heuchera is looking fantastic, bearded irises, some of them in flower, but the king, the star of the show, has got to be the laburnum in full flower. Now it's began to drop its confetti already, so that's why you see yellow scattered around the drive, but it's still looking pretty magnificent. And goodness, it seems that the wind is really getting up now. If it's not rain, it's wind. Anyway, there are 2 things I want to show you over here, and the first is this fantastic blue Corydalis elatus. And this plant I just bought last year as a small plant, and yet you can see already what a big clump I have, which is slightly worrying. Is it going to take over the world? Who knows? But the other thing to show you is here on my left. And those of you who've been following the channel for a while will recall that last year I planted up this section, this very, very difficult section underneath the conifer tree with Virginia, thinking that the Virginia could do well. Now this was Virginia without any roots. It was divided and lifted elsewhere in the garden and planted here in this inhospitable environment underneath the tree. And I say it's inhospitable because it's really, really dry. Conifers will do that. They will create an environment that's really, really dry and really, really difficult to plant in. Moist shade is good, but dry shade is the pits of the earth. But the Virginia seem to be doing well. Also, it's very acidic there from the constant flow of pine needles that drop down. And the Virginia seem to be doing really well. Some of them even tried to flower. All of them have got substantial roots now at this stage. So it really is a versatile plant that's worth planting in, well, it's worth trying in difficult places. And over here, yes here, and I don't mean the lamppost, we have Cyrtocrinum giganteum. This is a fantastic Himalayan lily that when it flowers, it is the most spectacular thing in any garden, with its heady scent and its enormous statuesque appearance. And I'm really pleased to have a healthy clump. And down on the ground here is an enormous cutie. And when I say enormous, I mean tiny actually, because this is the first of my roscoas to come into flower, a ginger relative that is hardy in my country. And now it's time to head up here in the garden. But before we leave, just a quick mention on my box hedging. And as you know, I suffered from box blight very recently. If you want to hear an update, then check out my April garden tour. I'm really looking forward to showing you my peonies, my itoh hybrid peonies. And the majority of them are further up in the garden. But before we go any further, check out this fantastic red one. So this one is called Scarlet Heaven, and I cannot get over the deep rich red colour. It's just fantastic. I absolutely love it. I also like how the red colour is echoed in the flower of this regersea, which is actually red. Down here on the second path through the arch, we have the first of the Martican lilies just coming into flower, and I have the white ones. They seed about, which is great. I love when they pop up here, there and everywhere. And now we're coming into the next section of the garden where I have some peonies. And here we have my main itoh hybrid display. The yellow peony in the middle is Bartzella, and the one on the right is Garden Treasure. And those two are the ones that are in flower at the moment. And I am such a big fan of the itoh hybrids because they don't need staking, and the flowers are just gorgeous. Quite different, I think, from the herbaceous peonies, because they're a cross between the tree peony and the herbaceous peony, but they are just gorgeous. While we're in the neighbourhood, I want to take the opportunity to point out a plant that perhaps I haven't mentioned in a while. So just above the peony, there's a clump of what looks like bushes over here. And this is Melanoselinum decipiens, a native of Madeira Island off Africa, Portuguese island off Africa, and a plant that grows easily and well from seed. It produces large pink umbels and a very interesting stem, an almost succulent stem. Now normally this plant grows to about 5 foot, but I have it tucked away in a shady area, so it reaches towards the light. It reaches and grows a bit taller than it would naturally, and I love the way I always have a clump here at the back of this border. And here we can spot the second of my roscoas to come into flower. Mostly my roscoa collection is later flowering, it flowers later in the season, but I do have these two early ones to show. And here we go up this path. So many paths in this garden, past some interesting looking bushes. Douentza still in flower, and Calycanthus with its glorious red flowers. Always mentioned whenever it's in flower, and I have a group here in the garden, they always mention it. And here at the top of that bed we have the foxglove called Palm's Choice in beautiful flower. Palm's Choice is definitely my choice as well in terms of the most fantastic foxglove. And I have to tell you that there was a pink one popped up just here, just beside it, which was obviously a volunteer, a cross between Palm's Choice and the native pink foxglove. And it had somehow escaped, and there it was. And of course I lifted it and got rid of it, because if I had kept it then it would have crossed again with Palm's Choice, and when I collected the seed it wouldn't be good, so we can't be having that. And yeah, Palm's Choice. It's been a funny old year because one of my favourite plants, which is this Artemisia you see down here, has mostly died. I do have that little bit that is coming up again, but most of it just was like seen off with the terrible wet we had for so many months during the winter, and I've lost it completely in a different place. So, you know, I thought maybe the alströmerias were a bit stunted, but the things that have done well have surprised me too. So rhododendrons have done fabulously. I suppose that's no surprise, but the bearded irises have also done well, and I would have thought they were a plant that would be a bit averse to months and months of rain. And I'm sorry to say that my Alstroemeria aureana isn't yet in flower. It's a shame. I would have loved to have shown you her, because when this is in flower, this whole mass of orange Alstroemeria, it looks absolutely fantastic. It's coming. There are a few flowers there, but we're not there quite yet. But while we're in the neighbourhood of the stone table, I want to show you something which, just bear with me, which is happening with my Trachycarpus fortunei. Now, I have this palm tree, Trachycarpus fortunei, in several places in the garden because it's quite hardy for me here in Ireland. But can you see that? Look, they're all flowering, all of them. Now, the flower isn't anything to write home about, but it's interesting. And now we're over behind the stone table where my wedding cake tree is on full display. And doesn't she look fantastic? This is a wonderful tree that is backed by copper beech, and it just shows off her fantastic colours and her beautiful blooms to perfection. It's a variegated tree, and it has cream umbels when in flower, which it has at the moment. And I think it's really worth having. Well, we're getting towards the end of this garden tour at the moment, but I do have some hardy orchids you might like to see. Now, I grow Cypripedium here in this purpose-built bed, but unfortunately the slugs were too quick for me this year and seem to have gotten nearly all of my blooms. And that, dear friends, brings me to the end of this June garden tour video, which I hope you enjoyed. If you managed to make it to my open day, then I hope you liked it better in person than it was when you saw it here on this video today. And indeed, you should know as well that I do open to groups by appointment. So whether you're abroad or whether you're in Ireland, I would love to welcome your gardening group here sometime. Do contact me and we will sort it out. So heading into June, and just to let you know that, I mean, maybe you want more of this kind of video. If so, then do let me know down below. And yeah, that's all. See you on the next video. Thanks as always for watching. Bye.